Most people still believe that having few friends is a character flaw. They look in the mirror, count the calls that went unanswered, count the invitations that never came, and conclude that there must be something wrong inside them. But Carl Jung understood something much colder, something almost no one dares to admit. In a sick society, being rejected by many is not a symptom of weakness. It is the first sign that your perception has stopped fitting into the molds that once made you feel accepted. It is not you who withdrew from the world. It is your level of consciousness that grew too large for the scenes you used to inhabit. There is a vast difference between the person who isolates out of hurt and the person who distances out of clarity. The first flees the world because they fear it. The second stops competing for space in it because they have seen what it demands in return. One hides, the other observes, and it is precisely there, at that nearly invisible point, that an extremely rare kind of personality is born. Not the introvert tired of parties, not the embittered loner. It is the person who has crossed the threshold of social innocence and has begun to realize that most human relationships operate on a foundation of silent agreements they can no longer sign without betraying themselves. You did not lose friends. You stopped being able to perform whatever kept them close, not because you became a worse person, but because you ceased to be useful as a mirror. People do not draw near you because of who you are. They draw near because of the role you play in their internal script. The patient listener, the available one, the funny one, the one who never complains, the one who validates. The moment you begin to have an inner life more complex than that role, the script breaks. And when the script breaks, the bond evaporates without warning. There was no betrayal, only the silent end of the unconscious contract that sustained the relationship. Jung would call this the price of individuation, the price of ceasing to be a character in order to become a subject. And this price almost always is paid in names that disappear from your list, in groups that carry on without you, in conversations that never happen again. Not because you did anything wrong, because you did the one thing those relationships could not sustain. You began to exist on the inside, and the world, especially your close circle, was not designed to receive people who exist on the inside. It was designed to receive useful, functional, predictable people. You became unpredictable. That is the one crime most social circles never forgive. Now consider something even more unsettling. There is a specific group of people who seemingly have many friends, who are present in every group, who receive messages every day, and who, even so, feel a deep exhaustion when they close their front door. They are not tired of people. They are tired of their own character. And this tiredness is not physical. It is an existential exhaustion from maintaining an edited version of themselves in order not to lose access to spaces where they were never allowed to enter whole. The loneliest person in the world is not the one who lives alone. It is the one who spends the entire day surrounded by people, smiling, agreeing, listening, offering just enough opinions not to disturb, and at the end of the day realizes that no one there truly knows what is going on inside them. That is what Jung would describe as the fatigue of the persona, that mask we create to survive social interaction, but which, when worn too long, begins to strangle the face beneath it. You come home and no longer know how to separate what you feel from what you have learned to show. You have agreed so many times with opinions that are not your own that you start to doubt which opinions, in fact, are still yours. It's not loneliness, it's the exhaustion of performing, laughing at jokes that aren't funny to you, feigning interest in the work, the love life, the children, the vacations of the person next to you, while a part of you watches everything from afar, with a coldness that frightens, keeping silent about what you really think because deep down you've learned that telling the truth doesn't create intimacy, it creates exclusion. And so you make the silent calculation, do I keep the bond or keep myself? And the bond almost always begins to win until the day it no longer wins. That is the moment the body gives its first warning. You start inventing excuses not to go out. You start preferring the empty street. You start feeling a strange lightness when an event gets cancelled. That lightness is not depression. It is the soul breathing for the first time in a long time. It is the organism understanding, before the mind does, that it was being consumed in environments where it could not be whole. And here appears one of the rarest and most silent signs of individuation beginning. You stop feeling pleasure in being where you need to perform. And it is exactly at this breaking point, when the exhaustion of pretending starts to hurt more than the fear of being alone, that most people freeze. They know they need to change, but have no map. That is why I prepared the Código do Despertar for you. Over 60 days you receive a daily lesson based on Carl Jung's deep psychology, with keys, questions and affirmations that cut through the noise of your persona and show day after day who is beneath the mask. You read, perform the micro-action and record it in a journal. It is not motivation. It is an inner map to leave paralysis behind and find clear direction for your life. The link is in the first pinned comment of this video. If you feel that something in you is asking for silence in order to be born, write the word individuation in the comments. It is your symbolic commitment to who you are about to become. To understand why this exhaustion appears, it is necessary to look closely at two gears Jung described, with almost surgical precision, the persona and the shadow. And for what we are discussing here, they are not abstract concepts. They are the exact mechanism by which most people lose their own friends without ever realizing it. The persona is that social mask you build in order to coexist in a group. It is not hypocrisy. It is survival. It is the version of you that knows the right topic at a family dinner, the polite response to a disguised provocation, the correct tone to address a boss. It is useful. The problem begins when you wear it for so long that you start believing you are it. Then everything that doesn't fit inside that mask starts being pushed inward, and that is where the shadow is born. The shadow is made of everything you buried in order to be loved. Your swallowed anger when someone crossed a line and you chose to smile. Your hidden ambition when you were taught to call it arrogance. Your desire that you repressed because they said it was ugly or petty. Your silenced opinions because you realized disagreeing had a social price. Your most honest doubts stifled because, in certain groups, doubt is synonymous with weakness. Your urge to leave a conversation swallowed because it seemed rude. Your will to say no swallowed because it seemed selfish. None of that disappears. Buried things never die. They leak. They leak as resentment. They leak as subtle criticism of others. They leak as disproportionate irritation at small things. They leak as chronic fatigue with no apparent cause. They leak as strange dreams you do not understand. They leak as illnesses that medical exams cannot explain. The body charges what the mouth was not permitted to say. And then comes the day when the shadow becomes larger than the persona. That is the moment Jung called individuation. It is not illumination. It is not epiphany. It is merely the moment when you can no longer sustain the energetic cost of denying who you are. From that point on, something changes irreversibly in your relationship with people. You begin to see the masks of others with a clarity you can no longer ignore. You notice who feigns interest. You notice who validates out of convenience. You notice who comes close for what you produce, not for who you are. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. That is why individuation at first feels like a loss. You start to lose your taste for conversations that once entertained you. You lose patience with dramas that once moved you. You lose the willingness to take part in social rituals that kept your life on autopilot. All of this seems like an impoverishment, but it is the opposite. It is the soul reclaiming the territory that the persona occupied alone for decades. It is not that the world has grown poor. It is that your gaze has grown honest. And when that territory begins to be reclaimed, something happens almost automatically. You start to filter. It is not an intellectual decision. It is an organic reaction. The body refuses to be in environments where the soul must remain silent. The voice falters in superficial conversations. The smile no longer rises to your face by reflex. And from that moment on, you enter a process that almost no one understands. Not even you at first. The choice of solitude. Solitude is not the same as isolation. Isolation is an escape. Solitude is a choice. Isolation is born from fear of the world. Solitude is born from respect for oneself. And here is a truth that almost no one has the courage to say. Most adult friendships are not based on genuine affection. They are based on unconscious psychological contracts. One sustains the other's self-esteem. One validates the other's edited version of life. One serves as a mirror, so the other does not have to look directly at themselves. That is a bond. But it is not intimacy. When you start to filter, You are not being arrogant. You are renegotiating the unconscious contracts you signed without reading. You are refusing to keep funding the self-esteem of someone who never asks how you are. You are refusing to serve as a cheap mirror for those who do not want to look at themselves. And yes, this will make a lot of people disappear, but in the place of those people who disappear, a vast space opens up inside your chest, and it is in that space, and only in that space, that the next phase of your life can begin. You will notice that the silence that once frightened you now nourishes you. You will notice that empty Sundays are no longer a symptom of social failure, but have become an exercise in reconnection. You will notice that you can read a book without checking your phone. You will notice that your breath is deeper. This is not loneliness, it is the first time you are fully present in the same place as your own body. And if you are already feeling this now, listening to this video, it is because this process has begun. Do not let it be sabotaged by haste. The Code of Awakening was made exactly for this moment. 60 days of lessons based on Jung, so you do not lose yourself in this new silence. The link is in the first pinned comment. If you do not start today, you will likely put it off for another year within the same weariness. Go now. Now prepare yourself, because what comes next is the part that destabilizes whoever begins this path the most. The moment you stop being the performed version of yourself, something predictable and cruel happens. The people around you start reacting, and they don't react to your change itself, they react to the fact that you have broken the unconscious contract that sustained the coexistence. They got used to receiving a specific version of you, a useful version, a predictable version, a version that served as the soundtrack to their lives without ever competing for space. And when that version disappears, they don't miss you, they miss the function you served, and that longing is confused inside their heads with lost affection. But it isn't. You will be called arrogant. You will be called strange. You will be called cold. They will say you've changed, and they will say it with an accusatory tone, as if change were betrayal. They will say you've become a difficult person, when in truth, you've only become impossible to manipulate. They will say you think you're better, when in truth, you've only stopped pretending to be worse to keep them comfortable. They will say you're distant, when in truth, you've only stopped making the one-sided effort that no one returned. None of this is about you. It's about the discomfort your movement generates in people who are still paralyzed inside their own masks. You have become an uncomfortable mirror, and no one strikes out faster than someone who sees themselves in a mirror they didn't ask to look into. They don't hate you, they hate what your new presence reveals about themselves. They hate the feeling that, if you manage to leave a common place, they could have too. But they're still there, and since they can't admit that, they need to turn you into the villain of their own resentment. Jung would say you have become a projection. People aren't seeing you as you are. They are seeing you as their wounds allow you to exist. They look at you and don't see your truth. They see the brother who abandoned them. They see the father who disappointed them. They see the partner who traded them. They see in you the face of all the disappointments they have yet to integrate, and they punish you for faces that were never yours. And once you understand this mechanism, you stop taking those criticisms to heart. They stop hurting you at the depth they used to. You start hearing complaints about your new attitude with the same neutrality with which you hear the sound of rain. It's not indifference, it's awareness. It's the first time you separate, with surgical precision, what is yours from what was merely projected onto you. And here appears one of the most silent proofs of individuation. You stop feeling the need to explain yourself. It's not pride, it's energy economy. You understand that whoever needs an explanation has already decided who you are before the conversation, and that spending words trying to change that decision is almost always humiliation disguised as dialogue. So you fall silent. And in your silence lives a new form of strength that almost no one learns to name. But here there is a trap, and it's such a subtle trap that most people who start this path fall into it without realizing it. It's the trap of using the language of individuation to justify bitterness. It's the trap of turning solitude into contempt for others. It's the trap of putting on the mask of being awake in order to keep hating the world from the same old wounds, now armed with a more sophisticated vocabulary. There is a vast difference between someone who has stepped away out of clarity and someone who has stepped away out of resentment. The clear-minded person feels compassion for those still trapped. The resentful person takes pleasure in seeing that others remain trapped. The clear-minded person stays silent because they have nothing to prove. The resentful person stays silent because they are stockpiling ammunition. The clear-minded person finds peace. The resentful person finds only a new form of superiority, trading the mask of kindness for the mask of wisdom. This difference is the hardest test of the process. Because the mind is cunning, it will offer you elegant concepts to justify old resentments. It will give you terms like low vibration, dense energy, people who aren't on my level. And if you are not honest with yourself, you will buy into these phrases without realizing they are just the old ego wearing new clothes. The ego loves to disguise itself as spirituality. It is its favorite strategy for never being unmasked. The sign that you are on the true path is simple and uncomfortable. Your new solitude does not make you feel superior to anyone. It makes you feel deeply responsible for yourself. You look at people who are still lost in their own unconscious contracts and feel not contempt but a silent sadness. You understand that you were once one of them. You understand that if you eased up just a little, you would still be. And this awareness does not breed arrogance, it breeds humility. True individuation does not fill you with righteousness. It empties you of the need for righteousness. You stop needing others to agree with your movement in order to feel it is legitimate. That is maturity. The rest is loneliness dressed up as wisdom. And that rest is costly. It condemns you to a life where you are the perpetual hero of a soap opera that no one is watching. After crossing through this trap, something new finally begins. And it begins slowly, very slowly. After losing so many superficial relationships, after enduring the discomfort of being misunderstood, after refusing the temptation of elegant bitterness, you enter a phase that almost no one describes, the phase of silent reconstruction. You will not suddenly gain 10 new friends. You will not become the center of any group. That is not how this phase works. Reconstruction happens in almost invisible increments. A conversation appears. A conversation in which, for the first time in years, you do not need to edit what you feel. A person appears. A person who can hear your silence without trying to fill it. A bond appears. A bond in which weeks of no contact do not threaten intimacy. And little by little, you realize you have traded quantity for depth without even making a conscious choice. The body chose for you. But between the phase of breaking from the old and this phase of finding the new, there is a void. And it is this void that makes most people run back to relationships they know are dead. They do not return out of love. They return out of fear of the silence. And the price of that return is exorbitant. They spend the rest of their lives fighting for a place in a contract that even they no longer wanted to sign. The only way to cross this emptiness is to accept it as part of the process, not as a flaw, as a stage. You are not alone because you failed as a person. You are alone because you are between two versions of yourself. And in that interval, silence is not punishment. It is construction. You are not waiting for someone to show up. You are becoming someone worthy of being found. And it is here, at this very point, that you make the only decision that truly matters. You can close this video and keep trying to force friendships that have already run their course. Keep performing the version of yourself that others approved of. Keep calling loneliness what is, in truth, an inner calling being ignored. Or you can accept this emptiness and turn it into direction. The Awakening Code is the map that will accompany you for 60 days exactly in that silent interval, with one practical lesson per day based on the psychology of Jung. The link is in the first pinned comment. No one will make this move for you. And the next version of yourself does not appear by chance. It is built every day by whoever decides to begin. Now is the time. And now, before you close this video, one last question, and it must be asked with brutal honesty. Is your current solitude bringing you peace? Or is it bringing you only a new form of hurt disguised as growth? There is a difference between the silence that heals and the silence that rots. The silence that heals leaves you lighter. You breathe better. You look at your past without anger. You understand who was important and why, even if that person is no longer in your life today. You look at yourself with honesty, without punishing yourself. That is the silence Jung would call individuation in progress. The other silence, the one that rots, is different. It makes you revisit the same hurts in a cyclical way. It makes you build mental arguments against people who don't even remember you anymore. It makes you repeat to yourself every night that others are the ones who are wrong. It makes you collect examples that the world is shallow, so you don't have to look at your own undeveloped depth. That silence is not freedom. It is a new prison, more elegant, but still a prison. And the most uncomfortable question is this. In your current withdrawal, who are you when no one is watching? Are you a person at peace, or are you a person waiting for the world to apologize for having disappointed you? Do you look at your empty nights with acceptance, or do you look with a mental script being written against someone? This distinction is not philosophical. It is practical. It is the dividing line between a solitude that builds and a loneliness that destroys. And it is the only question that matters at this moment in your life. No one can answer it for you. No video, no book, no therapy gets through this in your place. It is you, alone, in front of your own silence, deciding what it will become. You can close this video now and keep calling individuation what might still be resentment. No one here will force the difference on you. You can keep performing the role of someone who has woken up without ever truly waking, because truly waking hurts, and no one applauds you for it. Or you can accept the price that has been charged for this recent clarity and begin to build, with honesty, the next version of yourself, without an audience, without consolation, without a shortcut. The guide is in the first comment. The illusion is over. Choose.